Talking Toilets with Alex Hope and William Smith.
Hello and welcome back to Talking Toilets Lockdown Specials. This is the 5th week. Yeah!
Week 5, and we start with a little trumpet and tuba solo from William Smith, which is definitely staying in.
Yeah, I've been incredibly gassy, to be fair.
What's caused that? Is it the smoothie you're drinking, the spirulina nonsense?
No, well, spirulina isn't nonsense. It's incredibly healthy for you. But no, I think it's due to, like 2 days ago, I had it was a friend's birthday, so we did a karaoke, and I drank quite a lot of whiskey, more than I should have done. I basically just drank everything that I had not been drinking for the past few years and just carried from rented accommodation to rented accommodation.
Yeah, yes. I'm very aware of those items.
Yeah, so that was good. So I enjoyed that. And then yesterday was like a hangover day where the only thing I had to eat was breakfast, lunch and dinner was a Papa John's pizza.
Okay.
Which was nice. It's one of the to financially make Papa John's viable, you have to have it for 3 meals, really.
3 meals and 6 people. Surely.
Yeah, it was nice. Yeah, but I think that's led to me being slightly gassy. But overall, how are you at the moment, Alex? Are you good?
Yeah, I'm okay. I'm good. I'm surviving. I'm recently back at my work. I've had a weekend after 2 days back, which is always a good start, I'd say. Start as you mean to go on.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, that's not going to happen. But yeah, no, it's good. It's being outside is okay. The weather stayed okay.
Yeah,
which I know you were worried about. Life at home is as usual. I'm glad to be back using my lavatory after a couple of scary days out on the road. But yeah, apart from that, all good.
Yeah, good. Yeah, no, I'm all right as well. Thank you for asking, Alex.
Of course.
I'm fine. Kind of still, I'm treading this kind of trepidatious ground where I don't want to return to work, but I actively would like to return to normal life. And I'm probably one of the millions out there who's currently thinking about maybe having a change of career. Trying to work out how I plan that motion with like nothing being around in the world. There are only so many online courses you can do, and most of the ones that are progressive in terms of building a career cost a lot of money and have a lot of time commitment.
True.
My toilet story this week is quite simple. It's surprise, revolved around the toilet that I have in my flat.
That you've been glued to for the past 9 weeks?
8 weeks, I think. 8 weeks I've very rarely used the toilet other than my own. In fact, it's mostly been nature or my own toilet.
Right.
And it's been lovely, actually. It's quite, as spoken about before, I enjoy my toilet. This situation was, I want to stress that it's not my toilet's fault what happened.
Okay.
It's my toilet remains as wonderful as it is. So I sat down on my lovely toilet. This was 2 nights ago, which was during the karaoke thing.
On the party night.
On the party night. So I sat down on the toilet, probably was 4 whiskey gingers in, and heard a noise I'd never heard before in the flat. It was like an air raid siren. It was.
Oh God!
It was, like burp, burp, burp. It really was quite alarming, and it took me quite a while to work out where it was coming from, what was going on. So sat on the toilet, was halfway through a poo. And then the alarm starts going off, and I'm just like, okay, what do I do? So I
the order you do the next things are really important.
Shyly wipe, if that's the terminology. I grab the toilet paper,
a Shwipe,
and kind of slide it over my arse.
That did not look shy.
And
no.
Basically, I stopped mid-poo, wiped whatever was solid off my arse. I didn't do like an investigative wipe. Chucked it in the toilet, pulled my trousers up, opened the door to then my girlfriend Shannon, who was in the other room with her headphones on. She was hosting a virtual quiz, and she was kind of doing like this. She had only just started to discover that there was something wrong. Apparently, it was the people that she was doing the quiz with were like, "Can anyone else hear that really loud noise?" And Shannon was so invested in hosting this quiz that she hadn't noticed. But I barge in this room, and I'm like, what's going on? Shannon has an incense lit. But
Right.
the window's open. We've had incense lit in this room.
Okay.
Loads. We're cooking. We've never had the alarm go off before or noticed it.
So you're crossing out all the options.
I don't think it's us. So then, then that thing plays in my head, which is don't grab anything, just leave the building. So naturally, I get my shoes because I'm currently barefoot. I get my shoes, I get my phone, which takes me, 20 seconds to grab. It's not like I'm endangering anybody but myself. Shannon's more smart and doesn't grab anything. And just actually, she says goodbye to the people on her quiz saying, "Give me a minute." And then goes. Annoyingly, so during this time where I was dealing with this alarm and had taken a poo, the girls whose birthday it was during the karaoke, it was her song singing "Hey Big Spender," and it looked, because it was Zoom where it isolates only the audio of the main person. It meant that she just assumes that I just fucked off during her song. But anyway, so I've grabbed my shoes, I've grabbed my phone, and I just go down the stairs. And at the bottom, I'm greeted with the two people that live below me. There is one person who lives above me, and it wasn't them. They weren't there. So the two people are below. They're both at the fire alarm panel saying it's flat D, which is the flat above me, and they're not here to be seen. And then that's when panic sets in, because it's like, if it was, is it an unoccupied? Are they not? Not in the flat and there's a fire in there? What's going on? So I run upstairs and kind of banging on the door. It's the door directly opposite my door. And they, maybe after 45 seconds, potentially a minute of banging on the door, they open it and it's the girl, and she's just like, "Oh, sorry, I was cooking." And it was like, "Oh, okay, cool." During the period of time it's taken for me to knock on your door, I've loosely had a wipe in the toilet. I've got Shannon who's ended her quiz. I've grabbed my phone and my shoes. We've run downstairs, communicated with the people downstairs that it's not them, seen it's flat D. Then run upstairs, knocked on your door, by which time the alarm has been cancelled by the people downstairs, and then it's reignited. The alarm has happened a second time. It's been set off a second time, and now you're opening the door. And she was like, "Oh yeah, I was just cooking." And it was like, fucking hell, you are not an alert person. We are not living with an alert person. But
jeez.
But the entire experience began while I was on the toilet.
I mean, were you able to resume, or were you too shy?
Yeah, no, I returned back to the toilet where I saw the kind of, half log and one sheet of toilet paper in the toilet.
I didn't hear a flush. Yeah, so you hadn't flushed. Yeah, I didn't hear a flush in your line of activity, which makes me think that if I ever have to discover you dead, I just wonder what state you're going to have left your toilet in. And I worry.
Don't worry about my toilet. My toilet. I love the state of my toilet. It's probably the cleanest part of the flat.
Do you think that a fire investigator would have seen that and been like, "Oh, we got one extremely alert person in this building who was so concerned for the safety of themselves and everyone else that within their toilet lies only one piece of toilet paper."
and it was very clear that they required more than that one single sheet.
Because of what lays beneath.
What lays beneath. Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure those are kind of accolades the fire marshals give out, but it would be. I'd happily present that in my flat.
No, that's a Pride of Britain award category.
But that was my toilet story. It was good. I mean, really,
that sounds very exciting.
It wasn't around the toilet. It wasn't any of the toilet's issue. It just began on the toilet and then ended on the toilet. Yeah.
I blame the girl whose birthday it was, because Hey Big Spender is a showstopper.
Well, we actually did a thing where every time... So she sung Hey Big Spender, And then every time somebody finished singing or there was like a break in chat or things were getting a bit, I don't know, they would, the girl who was hosting it, which was a girl called Jen, she would play the intro to Hey Big Spender. And then that would be cue for the birthday girl. So for all of us to drink our drinks and the birthday girl would dare one of us to go and do something. Oh, and that was also, I had to doubt, somebody dared me to have a teaspoon of chili. So that might.
Oh, great!
So that might have also added to the flatulence, which
I think that here you've got some gunpowder going on in the middle of your stomach.
Somebody mentioned to me. Somebody said, "Oh, Will, you're going to be farting a lot tomorrow," and I was like, "Mate, it's just going to be the same. It's just how I live my life."
Sweet. Well, that was a lovely story.
No
Very
problem.
exciting.
So you're back out on the road then?
I'm back out on the road. I have been visiting toilets far less than I usually do. So what I've tried to do, just because I'm a bit, you probably heard last week that I was getting a bit on edge about it, because it just feels weird going back, and also slightly more dangerous than it was before for some reason, even though people have been presumably getting their immunity to the disease, or the virus rather. But I've just kind of tried to streamline my day in my head before I go out into as little contact with others as possible. And that obviously can't happen in the warehouse, but it can happen in a sort of like...
Yeah, well, you've got to be
intelligent.
You've got to be intelligent about it. You've got to mentally prepare yourself. You'd be stupid not to, because I mean, it is a worldwide pandemic that you're stepping out into.
So toilets is a big thing. It's not helped by the fact that today I looked at a few articles about how easily transferable the virus is in toilets and public toilets. So I'm limiting my use to one a day, and that happened once in the past 2 days I've been working, and that was at a service station in Baldock Extra, and I had a plan. And what's great about the extra service stations I've been to is that it's in a kind of circular layout. So you enter the building from a different door than another person leaving the building, and you go all the way around to the toilets, which are at the back, and then you've got the little bottleneck, which is kind of a do or die thing. So you have to just go in and hope nobody's in that sort of little bend, the modesty bend of the toilet.
You could even do a thing where you could just get a little bell, or just go, "I'm coming round the bend."
Yeah, exactly. I need to go! Yeah. So I went round, I did my business, people weren't really that close to one another, and then I kind of came out and went round the other way via M&S to get my favourite vegan sausage rolls. Didn't have them, so I just left, and it just felt super efficient. So I have to raise a hand to whoever runs the extra company for service stations, just merely from a heart to heart, and say, you've done a good job. I congratulate you. People need to be reminded these days that a little bit of ingenuity is going to go a long way for a lot of people. But then you have the other side of the coin, and you have people sort of sitting... There was like a stall. For some reason, the Jamaican Patty Company is still open, which is it's a kitchen, but who knows? And there were like 3 workmen congregated around it, talking and eating patties.
Regarding service station toilets, I've always the one thing that I find, I suppose, the most threatening. I don't know, it unsettles me the most is the smiley face chart system that they always ask you. Well, they don't ask you, but they put it there. They also have it in airports as well, where you've got a smiley face if you like it, a kind of medium face, and then like a sad face. And as a kid, I've definitely been one of those people that's gone and just pressed the sad face over and over again. But as you become slightly more clued on to how toilets should be run, you kind of learn that this is not the place to be, and it's also definitely not the tool or device that it should. That's just going to spread. That's just going to spread virus and bacteria, isn't it? Especially having it in a toilet. I understand the idea of putting it outside the toilet. Maybe people have washed their hands. You'd hope people have washed their hands and then used it. But law of averages. I think it's been designed by somebody who's gone, right, we keep getting loads of complaints about our toilets. So I now need to find a very cheap solution to, solve people's satisfaction rating, improve it.
I have unofficially doctored one of those feedback systems at a place I used to work at in Edinburgh. And
was it the Dungeons?
I wish you hadn't said it, but I suppose my affiliation is probably severed now. They're a wonderful bunch of people, with the exception of the head office, but that is another podcast. Yeah, I think I wasn't working there, and then I went to visit a few people that were doing a show, and then I left. Yeah, that was it. I had an accomplice, so I'm not fully to blame.
Yeah. So did anything particular happen, or you just had to use these dodgy service stations?
No, I had a very pleasant, quick, swift number 1 and headed out door number 2.
Wow. I'm very impressed, actually, because generally the idea of leaving the house and having, going, I'm only going to use one toilet that's not my own toilet now I've left my house, is something that I just wouldn't be able to do. I just don't have that, I don't know, what do you call it? That muscle, that endurance, that ability to be able to control my bladder and bowel. Like, if I need to go, I need to go, and I can't.
Yeah, I don't want to mislead you. I don't want to mislead you in thinking that that's the only toilet in the southwest of England in Baldock that I'm going to use from this point until the vaccine.
No, but just daily, you mean, don't you? You just
it's going to be one toilet a day.
Yeah, well, I just find that incredible.
Yeah.
Should we move on to toilet news?
Why not?
Why not? We call this section Toilet News!
Agreed. So we're going to talk a bit about the news from the past week or so. My article this week is actually, funnily enough, I found this in The Sun. I don't think they've painted this in a very good light, but the protagonist is this schoolgirl who's 13 years old. She wins a court battle forcing council to scrap transgender toilet plans. So a 13-year-old girl has forced a council to scrap its transgender toilet toolkit after winning a court battle. So she went to the county council and then to the High Court in Oxfordshire, saying her safety and privacy was threatened because in her school they are going to present basically a booklet, a pamphlet, with information to teachers to start to accept different people on the gender spectrum's preferred toilet and changing room situation. I thought it was important to talk about this today because today, the day we're recording this, is the 17th of May. It is the International Day Against Homophobia and Transphobia.
Woo!
And this is, absolutely 100%. We support that at Talking Toilets. The article is basically saying that it's a step forward that this has happened, that something clear-cut has remained in this ever-changing, ever-budding world of people early on in their lives starting to decide what their identity is and understand what their identity is and feel safe where they are vulnerable. And don't get me wrong, as a cis white man, I have my privilege, but I also have my past, and I understand from an empathetic level what it means to these people, what it means to have something that safeguards them as well as their freedoms. And
it's something that's so ingrained in our society, in our education, in our upbringing, in our language, the definition of gender and the categorization of that, and how important it is, throughout all of our. I think when we look at our education system, I think many people have kind of realised or analysed that we very, very much go through our entire school life being categorised by not just the kids, by the system itself, and how it's important to try to undo that as much as we possibly can. If a young boy is starting to feel that they're not a boy, or starting to question their gender or who they are. It's not themselves that's the issue. It's not the teachers that want to, or the school children that are around them. It's the way society has brought them up to feel that it's not right. Whereas actually, children should be taught that they just should use whatever toilet they feel most comfortable using, and therefore you don't have to invest in loads of money in creating new toilets or putting up new toilet signs. You just make it known that it's not something to be looked down on if people are starting to be curious.
Absolutely. I feel like the society that we're in is a democratic society. I wish the example that our industry in theatre and the arts, basically, predominantly those are the buildings that have gender neutral toilets in them. If there's any sort of ideological basis that we can give the world, it should stem from the creative arts. I feel like it's always been about equality. It's always been about getting everyone to a singular level in their own sort of freedom of expression.
But there is, and this is quite a difficult thought to get out without making it sound. I'm just going to say it. You know, there has to be a certain level of privilege to be able to have certain feelings or opinions, and that's not me saying you have to have a certain amount of privilege to suddenly feel like you're identifying in a certain where you're identifying, but it's more like, yes, you're right, it's very kind of left wing, it's very theatres, is those kind of places that are able to invest and have this kind of non-gender binary LGBTQ plus understanding. I think quite often nowadays kids that are in poverty, which is a shocking percentage of our population, they actually have to build up an armor of masculinity or build up an armor of being very feminine to survive within the world that they're born into. Whereas if you don't have, if you have the privilege around you and you don't have to do that, or you're surrounded by money, then you're open to start asking those questions from an earlier age.
Yeah, and I think what the County Council of Oxfordshire were doing with this leaflet was in some way offering a leaf to one underrepresented, misrepresented portion of the population from an as early a stage as you can get, the stage where we're starting our life. And I really feel like that's the sort of that's the message that you should take away from this, and not that it's an encroachment from politics into ordinary life, whatever that is.
From a structural point of view, though, when you think about how we decide what schools we send our kids to and things like that, because I mean that's the difficulty, isn't it? There's always like the Billy Elliot kind of story. There's always going to be people that are going to challenge new thinkers. Older generations will naturally find it more difficult to adapt to change than younger generations. It's just that's not a negative thing. Soon you and I will be that generation that finds it hard to adapt to change. You always hope that you're not going to be that, but one day we will.
The article at the end has basically said that in place of this pamphlet from the Oxfordshire County Council, the school and the school system will be taking on the Equality and Human Rights Commission guidance that gets released. It's that organisation is basically for lots of discrimination, sort of whatever form it can be in, and it hands out legalistic guidance into what terms and ways things should be done in.
Right, shall I move on to mine?
Let's do it.
Right, why we should celebrate the end of toilet paper. This is an incredibly contentious article, especially to bring up with Alex and I, but it's very difficult to dispute the facts that are being told in this. So this is from the New Statesman, and it says, toilet paper is an unhygienic, ecologically irresponsible waste of money. Our obsession with Leroy is wiping out forests by destroying 27,000 trees every day. Like the Amazon is at threat. It says here it's under severe threat from industrial logging. Much of it is toilet paper. It does make you question, we kind of use toilet paper endlessly without really kind of thinking about it. If you think about the service industry, how much toilet paper they go through, hospitals, an incredible amount of toilet paper. And I think what's most important about this article, let's go through the article. As it says, before the rise of industrially produced toilet paper in the mid-19th century, societies across the world used a variety of organic materials, which again references back to that article that you were chatting about.
Sticks and cloths.
Yeah, although it doesn't really mention sticks and cloths here. It says leaves, grass, which I think grass would be quite an awful thing to wipe your ass with, sand.
Which is incredibly surprising, considering what sand is.
Well, yeah. Yeah.
It's effectively rock.
It is loads of rock. But I was thinking about sand, and like when somebody throws up in school, and then like you throw sand over it, and it like absorbs. Yeah. That kind of idea where if you just rub sand and maybe
it creates a more viscous solid
for you then to kind of rub off. I don't know. Fruit skins, which I think was a good idea. Have like a bag of oranges next to the toilet, so when you have a few oranges, that's how and bananas.
It will certainly disguise that smell.
Yeah, definitely. Corn cobs. which is interesting. Probably because of their shape, they felt that it was quite
That's for people who really enjoy going to the toilet. I
well
think.
suited. Yeah, yeah, definitely. But overall, I think it's a good point it's making. 127 rolls a year is the average person's.
Yeah, all the numbers in this article surprised me because
I
because of the argument of the bidet. It is there are so many things in this article. It's a really great one. You should read at home. It is a wonderful sort of through line into this is how much money Americans spend. Something ridiculous like $6 billion a year on toilet paper. And how many percent of the deforestation was due to toilet paper? It's like 15%.
15%, yeah.
Which is just amazing to think of 15% of the grand forests of the world ending up in your hand and under your arsehole. It doesn't seem a fitting end.
It also ends up then kind of flushed down the toilet without any second thought, and it causes about 300,000 sewer blocks every year, and that's just in the UK. And that cost, it says here, £100 million but according to Water UK, to solve out. And on average, 14 wet wipes per 100 metres of coastline in Britain each year.
But the irony is that it wouldn't cost that much money to sort out if it were the opposite system, like in Spain, France, Turkey, wherever, where you add in one extra piece of plumbing into your bathroom setup, which comes either through the back of the toilet or into a separate basin. And what happens is that drain doesn't just become blockage free, but it becomes its own intricate, life sort of giving, microorganistic world where frogs and newts and snakes can live, and then eventually come to bask at the surface in your toilet. And what a wonderful way to invite wildlife into your home.
It is a really good article. I mean, it talks about how, I mean, it's an argument which I've always found quite difficult to accept. But, the benefits of washing your arse, which we had done for, thousands of years before toilet paper came in the 19th century. How that, they said here that in Oxfordshire they did a study with 940 men, and they found 470 people had fecal matter in their pants.
Yeah.
And all of those people were the people who were using toilet paper. Which
is shocking, isn't it? And it brings back terrible memories.
It also says here with bidets you have a lower risk of getting hemorrhoids along other genital or anal afflictions, which is great. So overall it's a great, less fatbergs, better health, better hygiene, saving the forest, saving the planet. I mean, we could talk about water in terms of the fact that you'd be using water, but I don't think there's a sound argument against when we shit into clean drinking water anyway. I think using a little bit to flush your
But at the start of this discussion you said that you weren't fully convinced.
No, I'm not fully convinced. I mean, I can't argue with it in an ecological kind of way. I can't argue about it in an environmental way. I mean, what you could say is that it says in this article it costs less than £50 to have an attachable bidet seat to your toilet. But I suppose most of people living in London, I assume, are living in rented accommodation. So adding an extra bit of plumbing would probably not be beneficial for the landlords. Also £50 a year is probably the amount of money somebody would spend on toilet paper, I imagine, if you're just buying toilet paper for yourself.
It does say that at the bottom the average is 40 quid.
The average is 40 quid. I don't agree with that. I definitely spend more than £40 a year on toilet paper. But maybe it's just because it depends. I don't know. But because I spent
because you have 10 times more trips to the toilet than an ordinary human being.
That is true. Yeah, that is true. But I also probably wasn't included in this study. But being able to fork out that amount of money once, though, might be financially and economically viable. It might not be an investment that poorer people might not want to do. People not earning the living wage.
They managed to do it in the other European countries. So who knows?
That was probably more for necessity. Do you know what I mean? They go, right, we can't afford to buy toilet paper consistently, so why don't we just do this one investment now?
But now, seeing as the prices have sort of matched up,
yeah, maybe.
I think now is the time. And
yeah, maybe.
At least half of Talking Toilets gives it the thumbs up.
The thumbs up. Maybe I need to bite the bullet and anyway. Yeah, so that's the article I'm bringing to the table. I did also want to kind of give a mention out to the fact that Derbyshire is still struggling with frogs coming up the toilet. It seems an increased.
They absolutely are.
An increased use. It's all over the news. Also, you would think with the coronavirus, with less people around, with less traffic, you would expect these frogs to find more natural waters. But for some reason, this behaviour, this change, has made them find home in the sewers. So you wonder why that would be the case. Maybe there's
there's a lot of stuff to eat down there, isn't there?
Yeah, maybe that's it. Maybe that's it. Great.
Brilliant.
Welcome to our topic toilet section. This is where Alex and I go back into our past memories of toilet experiences and try to link up a toilet we've had with the topic. The topic today is
unlikely toilets.
Unlikely toilets. I mean, this could be any toilet, really. Any toilet that has seemed unlikely.
So, which toilet surprised you, Will?
Well, mine is... I kind of had a couple that I was thinking of, but one of which was man-made. By man-made, I mean made by me. And I don't think I'm going to talk about that toilet today because it's festival, and we talked about festivals the other... we did. So I'm going to go with a toilet that is in North London. It's in Holloway Road, and it's in like a food market kind of area. So there's Holloway Road, then you've got Seven Sisters Road, and you go down Seven Sisters Road, and there's like it's almost like somebody has like a shop to rent, and they've gone, right, I've got no idea how to make money out of this. Like, now's not the climate to be renting. So they've just put loads of benches in the middle of this thing, put booths up, and then rented each booth to somebody who wants to start doing takeaway or just, starts having a kitchen or whatever. And then they've signed up. So then you've got this basically room with benches, and then you've got like an Indian, a Chinese, a burrito place. And then after years and years and years of this place being open, a kind of culture has come where it's actually more of a community hub than anything else. It's a really nice space, and they do there is really good food there. I'd really recommend it.
Was.
Oh, why? Oh, why? Yeah, it was. So, yeah, do not go there now. Do not leave your
Remain indoors. Remain indoors.
Yeah, it's definitely not that. But I mean, in terms of their toilet, it was an absolute surprise because, you're sat there, you're eating your food, you're probably in there with... I'd say every time I've been in there were about 20 employees. There are probably 10 different food stands open with 2 employees in each of them. And there's normally about, 3 or 4 other people eating there. Like, there's definitely... It's also, you feel really bad because you go in and it's like... the poor man on the burrito stand has got a real big smile on his face and is really trying to encourage you to, but you just, because he's being so positive and wants your business, you just do not want to give it to him. You want to give it to the person that's looking really miserable in the corner that you're sure makes a great ramen. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. But anyway, so I don't know why I linked up the... Anyway.
You're definitely linking back to the TripAdvisor and Yelp reviewers I referenced earlier.
Yeah, absolutely.
He was so grumpy, but his food was really good. 1 star!
I remember. So I can't remember what I was having. I think I was having a curry, and then I went up to the kind of the back left corner where you can kind of see an exit, but it's definitely not an exit. It's like going into somebody's back garden.
Are there things being stored or like empty kegs and stuff?
Yeah, there's like bicycles, empty oil things, kind of. Yeah. And there's a guy who's got his, he's probably got he picked the short straw in terms of getting the plot. Getting the bad.
He got in last.
Well, he's there at the back. He's got no advertisement. It's very unclear what he's selling, but he definitely is stood in the middle of the kitchen expecting business to just arrive. And I go, "You're right, mate," and he looks very eager as if to say, "Yeah, you want to buy something?" And I'm like, "Is there a toilet around here that I can use?" And he points to the back door. So you go through the back door and you enter into what is kind of like. At the dump where you have a section for your white appliances, like your fridges, your washing machines. Yeah. You enter
the ones that sort of sit out with the containers. Yeah.
Yeah. So you exit, you go out the back door, and you kind of immediately arrive in what feels like that part of the dump. You're just surrounded by washing machines, old fridges, things that people have just left there and will congregate and will, soon become an artifact of Holloway Road. And then you go to the very back, and there's like a small shack. It says Lil on it. You go in there. There are 2 windows which aren't windows. They're just like barbed railings. So you are, outside one with nature. The toilet paper was very damp. It was, not a particularly hygienic experience. I used the toilet. I was very thankful for the toilet being there. It had soap. I left the toilet and went back into this kind of, world of white appliances. Sat down to Shannon and kind of had, retold her my toilet experience. To which she went, yeah, I'm going to use the toilet. You know what I mean? That kind of, that is an unlikely toilet. That is a strange toilet experience.
It feels like my inner geography is positioning it like right at the back of wherever you are in like the dingiest, darkest corner.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Absolutely. It feels like a toilet that isn't for customers. It feels like a toilet that should be, you got the employee toilet, which is horrible, and then you got the customer toilet, which is lovely.
Yeah, it's got air freshener in it. Yeah.
Whereas this place, clearly, because doesn't have like a single business occupying it. It's rented to several different businesses that are all there just to try to, to earn a bit of money, earn a bit of buck. None of them are really there to maintain or keep up the toilets.
Yeah, your one there reminds me of a similarly unlikely-ish toilet, but it's like this sort of little brick shack in this farmhouse development where there's like a boiler spares company, and basically you walk around the back of this company's warehouse and there's this tiny room that's just a toilet and a sink, and it's like so old and like probably 50s 60s that the window's like jammed and it's jammed open. So, like, if you're there in winter, you're having a very misty pee. That's all I'm going to say. But the view out of the window when you wash your hands, it's almost like a piece of Grand Design's architecture that Kevin would talk about, because it's just, the horizon is so beautifully in the middle of your eye line, at least if you're my height, when you're washing your hands, that you can just look out for at least 3/4 of a mile while you're washing your hands.
It's lovely.
Like every single toilet's idea of aesthetic, when they put something on a wall that's a picture, like that's what you see out the sink.
Lovely.
When
That's
you're
a
washing your
dream.
hands.
That's a dream piss.
It is.
That's a dream piss.
But it sounds like you both had one.
Well, yeah. I wouldn't say it was a dream piss. It was just It was like you weren't going to the toilet, but you were. That makes sense. It was like you didn't fully. You went being uncomfortable with the need for pee. I had relieved myself of the need for pee, but had left with a kind of equilibrium level of being uncomfortable, having used a toilet which you felt didn't belong. I would have felt safer and more relieved, like peeing into one of the white appliances.
Not that this is usually an issue of yours, but it also doesn't sound the most clean and the most, because of the soaked toilet roll. And like,
it's just damp. Well, but
damp.
But it
feeling.
will be damp if it's kind of there are no windows.
But you're just aware that you probably smell of that damp now as you leave.
Forever, yeah, exactly. And then you leave. You also, where you then leave into is not a nice environment. And then so you go through the white appliances, and then you go back into this weird room filled with 10 different businesses trying to sell you their food. And then you make that link in your head that all of the people in this room trying to sell you food is using that toilet to relieve,
including the incredibly dejected guy selling ramen.
Selling, yeah. And the relationship between your food and the toilet, it links up.
Not great.
And you then start.
Bless him at the very back, giving a free toilet attendant service.
Oh, I know. I did
for
feel
no
sorry.
charge.
I did feel sorry for him. Right, what is your unlikely toilet?
I'm very excited about this because I'd completely forgotten about this until you sent this week's theme. And I just thought, I sent a picture of this. This is pre-Talking Toilets days, when I sort of had my fledgling fascination with where I go. But I was in Chichester, which is in West Sussex. We were doing a show, so I had to organise my own digs, which for non-theatre people is where you go and stay if you're out on the road touring or doing whatever you're doing. And I quite like to get the whole place if I'm getting digs, which obviously isn't great for the wallet. It is good for the privacy and the kind of, not being with actors 24/7 thing, which is always good, I would recommend. So we got this house which was a whole house, which me and one other person got. So we had there was like a kitchen, big living area, dining room, smaller living area. Upstairs there were 2 bedrooms, a study, and then at the top is the attic room. Now, we didn't know what rooms had been given to us or allocated to us, and it was a bit of a free-for-all. But they did say something about a room having to be kept as it is, which we later sort of just said no, because it's a nice bed and we're going to stay in there. But the first night, we didn't. So I stayed in the attic room, which is a single bed. The house had 2 bathrooms. Now, one of them isn't really a bathroom, and that's the one I'm going to talk about. The other one, to give you an idea of aesthetic of a toilet or a bathroom that I hate, this is it. Any bathroom that's like, I'll put these on the socials, but any bathroom seaside themed, I can't deal with it. I don't like it. I feel like it's a piss poor connection about water and about like the ebbing and flowing of the tide. Supposedly you're meant to be hearing the sound of the waves when you go inside it, like when you hold a conch up to your ear.
It's also coarse wood as well, like the panels. You feel that absorbed. Although, ironically, it's slightly more antibacterial, isn't it?
Yeah, potentially. But there's also there's often knots and like ropes or like hanging bits of like distressed wood with frames and shit. I just don't go in for it. No offense to the person whose house I stayed in, who will remain anonymous for very obvious reasons.
Well, maybe you shouldn't put the photos up onto the socials.
I'm sure he doesn't have my real name. Yeah, fuck it. I'm probably not going to be going back anytime soon. But
you weren't even by the sea, were you?
Well, Chichester is slightly close to the south coast.
Well, it's slightly more forgivable in my idea if it is near the sea.
You could drive a boat down in like 40 minutes.
Okay.
If you had £5 million. But anyway, this isn't going to be a lefty diatribe. The unlikely nature of the toilet was in that attic room. There were 2 cupboards that like a triangular shape to the middle of the room. So you open one, and it's a linen cupboard, as you'd expect. And then the other cupboard, it like comes up to me on my solar plexus and my chest plate. And you open the door, and it's a toilet. Just in this cupboard. And it's like, it's very clear that this toilet was put in to accommodate, because the house is basically a holiday let or an Airbnb, depending on which customer's using it. It's like, if we've got 3 people in one family sharing one bathroom, it'd be good if we had the top floor room attic for free with one toilet inside it. And somehow they've managed to plumb it into this tiny cupboard that really is not very tall. And obviously hilarity ensued. And I will put this up on the social, but this is me inside the toilet. And as you can see...
I love it!
I barely fit into it, and I got lots of comments on the length of my neck for that photograph for some reason I don't know.
Is there a sink in the room?
No sink. So incredibly hygienic.
It's awful. I mean, my favourite part of it is that it's like a cupboard, like a Narnia toilet.
It's a closet. It's a water closet. It's a wash closet.
It's a water closet. Yeah, it's literally.
WC.
I love that, and I'm also a big fan of kind of having more toilets than necessary. I mean, I think, but I would rather. I don't feel that it's having more toilets than necessary suddenly becomes awful when you don't complement a toilet with a sink. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. They do have to, and ideally to be in separate rooms next to each other, adjacent rooms.
I think I prefer that as long as there's a sink nearby. I think I prefer that to a room that you stay in that has a bed and just a sink in the corner. I find that almost like prison, that kind of setup. Yeah.
No, prison would be you just have a toilet.
And a bed, yeah.
And a bed.
But there's something about the sink in the room that's like, wash yourself in this.
Do you know what? I agree.
It's a really creepy invitation.
The sensation of not liking it is something that I have felt before. But I'm now, my opinion of it's changed. I remember I first stayed at my auntie's house.
I feel like it's useful for 3 people, junkies, people who have incontinence.
Hey, No, what are you talking about? I don't use that. No, what it is so when I was a kid, I stayed in one of my auntie who lives in Newcastle, and she has a sink in one of her guest bedrooms or whatever bedroom it was, and I found it very weird, quite disconcerting actually. I was a bit confused what room I was in. It was just, but it's also when you first discover it, when you first see this strange alteration to aesthetic reality. I think how I might have been 7, and that's to have 7 years of your life knowing the difference between a bathroom and a bedroom, and then suddenly having them combined together at the age of 7 is quite big. But then my opinion on it changed was when my parents retired and they moved to Eastbourne, and the spare bedroom has a sink in it. And it felt very strange. It felt, I couldn't quite relax into it. And then I stayed there for a few days. And I could get water whenever I wanted. I could brush my teeth without having to leave the room. I suppose those were the only 2 options that I could use the sink for. But it was useful to be able to get water in the middle of the night without having to disrupt.
Just put a glass of water by your bed.
Or walk on the landing. Yeah, but then I'd drink the glass of water. Do you know what I mean? And it's also this idea...
Pint glass.
Stale water. I drink more than a pint of water. I also pee considerably, so it doesn't really help. I then drink more water and then have to walk out and go to the toilet.
You're talking about equilibriums.
Equilibrium. But yeah, I don't know. I don't mind it. I actually quite like it. I would rather have an ensuite with a toilet in it.
Yeah.
But I've never been that fortunate though.
Would you prefer the sink in the room on its own to a toilet in the room on its own?
Yes.
I think I'd probably be with you there, to be honest. I didn't utilise that toilet once.
It would be... What? You didn't use it?
No. Well, no. I'm more comfortable. I like the cheeky sit-down wee every now and again, but I'm not really comfortable doing it if I have to crane my neck while I'm sat down. But also, I couldn't do it standing up because I would have to literally either go limbo or crouch to urinate.
Yeah, okay.
If I was facing the toilet. So it wasn't really A, practical, or B, enticing. The aura was very threatening.
Threatening aura. Yeah, great.
You had to be in a stress position, basically. Yeah, wonderful. Okay, shall we move on to our final thoughts? So this is the part of the podcast where we talk about hopes for the future. I'm going to just launch straight in and say, on a day where we are discussing homophobia and transphobia, I hope that the next toilet I see in a place that I wouldn't expect it in public is a gender-neutral toilet. There you have it.
Cool, great. I mean, when I think about what I want for the future, I can't not make it political. Having just read the Andy Burnham article in The Guardian about how, last Sunday when Boris Johnson wanted to, restart the country, he didn't communicate it with anybody. Nobody was given any notice. And as a result, I just think we all need to start communicating better. I think we all need to be slightly more human, and we all just need to take life a little bit more seriously in some side, which will allow us to kind of think about life in a slightly more ridiculous fashion. There's this good podcast. So we've joined these kind of podcast communities, having started this up. And there's a podcast I'd really like to give a shout out to, which is Talking Jack Shit podcast. They're 2 boys who, it's actually a few guys. They bring on guests and things. And they're near us in West Hampstead, actually. So we're probably going to do a collab with them. But, in order for us to be able to, talk jack shit, we need to be able to start taking other things seriously. And the person who really should be taking the world seriously right now is Boris Johnson. And the fact that he didn't communicate about easing the lockdown and changing the slogan to stay alert to the people that are trying to run these very difficult cities is disgusting. There'll be more people on the buses, more people on the roads, more people on the streets. And, there's no support for any of them.
Absolutely.
Just because of his poor communication.
It feels like it's the beginning of a free-for-all, if I'm being honest. I see things developing day on day on day. This morning even, just waking up, I heard more traffic on the roads than I've heard on a Sunday for the last 3 months.
Absolutely. Yeah, they've opened at the tennis court, so I potentially could go and play tennis.
It's with your household, isn't it? But again, the idea that we're trying to get across is that if you can, stay where you are.
Great. Well, thank you very much for listening. I hope you've enjoyed it. Next week, we're probably going to try and release something a little bit different. So make sure you tune in for that. Follow us on Facebook on Talking Tea Podcast. Again, that's because Facebook thinks toilet is a derogatory word.
And on Instagram and Twitter, we are at @TalkingToilets_ and keep the great feedback coming back in. Again, if you have shit feedback, just place it in the toilet with all the rest of your fucking shit.
Also, any toilet stories or toilet photos, please email them to talkingtoiletspodcast@gmail.com. We've had some great ones sent in. And as always, keep flushing.
Keep on flushing.